I mean, this looks like a great story. A woman who grows up in Cuba doesn't even know that her mom slept with Fidel Castro, that she is the daughter of Fidel Castro. I think she finds out like when she's 11 years old. And then, what's it like? I mean, what's it like to be the daughter of that guy, Fidel Castro? Wow, right? That's a fascinating story in and of itself. And it opens up an opportunity for an actor in the United States, and you would think a Latino actor, to get some of those key roles, especially the role of Fidel Castro, El Caballo, El Comandante, the man, the guy that everybody always thinks about when they think of revolutionaries, right? And more than half of them hate this dude because he's a communist and he's an autocrat and all the other stuff, while other people around the world think he's a hero because he fought the man. That's Fidel Castro. It is a hell of a role. And who do they give it to? James Franco, not a Latino, right? One more time, all together here, right? James Franco, not a Latino. And you're thinking, so what? That's what acting is all about, right? You don't play you play somebody else. Why can't James Franco play Fidel Castro? And the answer is, you're right. There's nothing the hell wrong with James Franco playing Fidel Castro. Nothing at all, except for this.
All right, look, I got no problems with James Franco, okay? So y'all just calm down. I grew up in an era where Latin people couldn't play Latin people on film, where Charlton Heston played a Mexican, where Eli Wallach played Mexican, where Pacino played Cuban and Puerto Rican.
Stop right there. That is John Leguizamo. He's making a lot of news right now. And when I said because of this, the point that he's making and the point that you're about to hear him make is the following point. Yes. And you hear him said, look, I got no problems with James Franco. He's got no problems with James Franco. I don't think anybody has a problem with James Franco. And by the way, if a Latino had done what James Franco is accused of doing, I know this is a little bit of a sidebar here. I apologize, but I got to say it. James Franco, who is being given this role as this great role as Fidel Castro, is in one hell of a controversy involving something he did and admits to doing. And he admits, look, I wish I hadn't done it. I'm sorry. I screwed up. I was drunk. I was high. I don't know. I was into drugs. I'm trying to fix myself. Lost his friendship with Seth Rogen because even his buddy Seth Rogen thought, that he was a bit of a scumbag. And he admits to being a bit of a scumbag now. But, and that's good that he's coming forward and saying, I made a mistake and I shouldn't have done it. But still, he did it. And he's now being rewarded by Hollywood with this role, as some would see it. I don't want to cancel people because they make mistakes in their lives, but it's important to note that. It's part of this story, right? It's part of this narrative that we're now talking about, where James Franco gets this key role in Hollywood, and here comes John Leguizamo, and not just John Leguizamo, there's others, I'll read them to you in just a bit, but here comes John Leguizamo, and he says, it's not about James Franco, it's about this, it's about the fact that we, as Latinos in the United States, and this is really important, make up 20% of the population of the United States, and Hollywood casts us 5% of the time in movies. And I could say the same thing about media. So we're 20% of the population, but only 5% of those cast in movies in Hollywood. And of that 5%, 37% of the time, how are Latinos cast? As criminals. And then another very large number, when they're not cast as criminals, how are they cast? As losers, as people without triumph in their life, as people who are, not substantial, inconsequential. Yeah, that's how Latinos are cast in Hollywood when they are cast. So that's the backdrop. Latinos are saying, you never cast us in good roles. And when finally a good role comes around that's interesting and deep, you don't give it to us. You give it to this guy. You give it to some other guy. So it's not about Franco. And listen, let's pick this up. Go ahead.
Where Ben Affleck, even in Argo, played a Latin guy. And Marissa Tomei played Latin women. And we couldn't play our own roles. Even there was brown face. People painting themselves to look Latin in West Side Story, Eli Wallach and the Wild Bunch. That's the era I grew up in. The era where they told you to change your name, stay out of the sun, that only white Latinos or white passing Latinos would get jobs. And they weren't even the main leads, because every time you ask for a main lead, they go, but there's no Latin actor who can carry that movie. Yeah, because you're never given the opportunity to play anything that was of worth, that had worthy value, that was of integral part of the plot that could give you box office. So no, appropriating our stories, no more of that.
I love that. Yeah. Say it again, John. Appropriating our stories. No more of that. Right. And that's the point he's making. I mean, you take our stories and you don't let us be involved with them. And then you involve us in stories where we're only cast as bad guys. And that's the general point that's being made by John Leguizamo here. And that's why we do this podcast. And it's called Rick Sanchez News. And you could find it on Spotify or on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. And you could tell your friends this now exists. Nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is doing this type of thing. And that's why I want to do this. And if you're listening to us, by the way, on YouTube, por favor, subscribe.
Agua.